Right now, the device you are watching this on contains something that used to be a rock, not metaphorically, literally. Sand sat in the ground for millions of years doing nothing. Then human beings did something to it so strange that if you described it to someone 300 years ago, they would think you were describing magic. This is the true story of how sand becomes a computer chip. Start with the raw material. Silicon makes up roughly 28% of the Earth's crust, second only to oxygen. But raw sand is full of impurities, iron, aluminum, dozens of trace elements. None of that is useful. So the first step is purification, and it begins with heat almost beyond imagination. The sand is melted in a furnace with carbon above 2,000 degrees Celsius. This strips away the oxygen, leaving metallurgical grade silicon, about 98% pure. For a computer chip, that is nowhere close to good enough. A processor needs silicon purified to 99.9999999%. Nine nines. Reaching it requires the Czochralski method, discovered in 1916 by Polish scientist Jan Czochralski, while testing how fast molten metal solidified around a dipped pin. A tiny seed crystal of pure silicon is dipped into molten silicon and slowly pulled upward while rotating. As it rises, silicon crystallizes onto it in a perfect atomic lattice, forming a cylindrical ingot called a boule, sometimes over a meter long. This is arguably the purest substance most people will ever touch. The boule is sliced, like a loaf of bread, into thin discs called wafers, thinner than a credit card, polished so smooth that one invisible scratch could ruin every chip made from it. Now comes the part that separates a rock from a machine that thinks. The wafer enters a clean room. Not a clean room. A clean room, an entirely different category of space. These rooms allow fewer than 10 airborne particles per cubic foot. Ordinary air contains millions. Workers wear full-body suits covering every inch of skin because a single hair is enough to destroy a chip's circuitry. Inside, the wafer undergoes photolithography. A light-sensitive chemical called photoresist coats the surface. Ultraviolet light projects through a mask, a stencil holding the circuit's blueprint, burning the pattern in. How precise. Modern chips are built at nodes measured in nanometers, some as small as 3 or 4. A red blood cell is about 7,000 nanometers wide. These features are smaller than viruses. The wafer is washed with chemicals that etch away everything except the protected pattern. This single wafer becomes hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 individual chips, all built simultaneously. But shaping the silicon is only the beginning. A RAM chip needs transistors, tiny switches, flipping between on and off, representing the ones and zeros all computing is built from. A single memory chip can hold billions of them, each needing to work perfectly for years. To build them, the wafer goes through doping. Impurities like boron or phosphorus are introduced into precise regions, measured in parts per billion. This changes how those regions conduct electricity, letting silicon behave like a switch that can hold a memory. This cycle, deposit, expose, etch, dope, repeats dozens of times, sometimes over 100, building the chip layer by layer like a sculpture invisible to the naked eye. Once complete, the wafer is tested. Robotic probes touch each chip to check whether it works. Defects are unavoidable at this scale, so software maps which chips are good before the wafers cut apart. The working chips are sliced free, packaged, connected to external pins, and tested again. Only then does beach sand become the RAM chip inside a phone, a laptop, or the device you're using right now. The entire process, from sand to finished chip, can take 3 to 4 months across facilities costing tens of billions of dollars to build, rivaling the cost of an airport. Think about what that means. Every time you save a photo, you rely on engineered stone, refined to 9 decimal places of purity, carved with patterns smaller than bacteria, storing information in the behavior of billions of microscopic switches. You never think about this. You were never meant to. The entire purpose of good engineering is to disappear, to become invisible, so something this insane feels completely ordinary. But it did not start ordinary. It started as sand on a beach, sitting still for millions of years. Then human beings looked at that sand, asked an absurd question, and spent decades answering it with furnaces hot enough to melt rock, rooms cleaner than surgery, and patterns smaller than a virus. The next time you pick up your phone, remember what is actually inside it. Not metal, not plastic. A rock that learned to hold a memory.